All right, starting the recording. And hi, I want to welcome. Turn on facilitator. For some reason, the casting to the screen behind me keeps turning off, and I don't know why that is, but so those of you online, Sherman especially, Jamie will be monitoring the chat as always, but please do feel free to, if something stops working online, I know Sherman, you will let us know. So please don't, because I'm on a single screen here since it's behind me. So let me know if we've stopped. All right. Oops. All right. It is casting. Very good. All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming. I really appreciate it. It's awesome to see so many different people here today from so many different organizations. And this is really fantastic. We have a couple more people that said they may be coming. They may be running a little late. And then we've got some people that will be joining us online as well. So this is a hybrid group, but we really do appreciate everybody being here in person, because I know it's an effort nowadays to come here, but there is something to be said for that in-person experience, being able to connect with each other. Another reason I love having these groups is the fact that I'm just going to be blunt. I'm not usually going to go chat to one of our clients about what another client is doing specifically, because it's your proprietary information, right? But you guys are in a room together. So if you want to share with each other, this is your chance. You get to decide what you want to share or not, right? And if you see somebody in the group and they're telling a story that is interesting to you, feel free to get their information and say, hey, let's follow up later, right? So this is an opportunity for you guys to get to know each other too, and to learn from one another. That being said, the other thing is that this group is really meant to be truly a round table. So our cadence for Savvy Technical Solutions is we do twice a year an in-person roundtable with a hybrid option, and then twice a year on the opposite months we just do general training we've done them on Outlook, Word, Excel, and we sort of rotate between the products, and those are an opportunity if you have team members and you just want to come in. And so a lot of the people in this room are stakeholders, the primary contacts we work with. And so we're really usually talking more about strategy and things like that of deploying these technologies. But that's an opportunity also if you have people that just generally want to come and have a lunch and learn kind of thing, that those are open to anybody at your organizations. So again, the topic today is we're going to be talking about real world Copilot. So some of our topics I kind of mentioned before is that some of them are more, some of our roundtables have been more teaching of what's the new technology, what's coming out, what are the announcements to keep you guys abreast of what's happening. Today is going to be a little different because I really wanted to make it more conversational in nature. So we are going to have 4 different speakers that are going to be presenting. And I really want you guys to have some time to be able to share your own experiences. And again, the idea here is being able to share it with one another. One of the biggest things that everyone is struggling with is like real use cases. It is so hard because it's not just let's automate something, but how do we just think about work differently? And that's such a big nebulous thing to think of that we all have to just start with one foot in front of the other and see what works. And so sometimes the hardest thing is finding these use cases. Plus the fact that I feel like AI is kind of like the internet or coding, where people are like, what does it do? Anything you want it to do. So sometimes when you hear somebody, you're like, that just doesn't hit right. Other people, you're going to be like, that's the thing. So that's why whenever they're doing this is, so there's some stuff you're going to be like, has nothing to do with me. And then other stuff you're going to be like, oh, I didn't think about doing that. Right. So the idea today is to get inspired, to start thinking about things and saying, oh, I hadn't thought about doing that. And maybe that's an option. Right. So that being said, please feel free to contribute, talk, share your own experiences and ideas. And we're going to have James starting us out today with our, as we're talking about change management, he's going to be talking about it more generally speaking, not specifically with Copilot per se, but just how do we navigate this organizational change that needs to happen, which is sort of a macro topic. So we're glad to have you with us today.
Thank you.
So I did want to talk a little bit about Savvy Technical Solutions because we have some people in the room that are newer. We have some people that we already have an existing relationship with, but some are new to the working with us. We were founded in 2012. We are based in Illinois, but we have an office here at Spark Co-working. And so I will say that this wonderful space we have. I'm always like, mi casa es su casa. So I have access to this space. And if you guys ever want to take advantage of it or meet with us here, we have quite a few customers who use this as an excuse for an offsite visit, right? Like for real. I've had a group that they were in West County. They took the entire company. We did training and they all did lunch at Ballpark Village, right? Like make a day of it, have fun, right? So if that's something that we can offer to you, we're happy to do that. We are a Microsoft Solutions partner for modern work, both for enterprise and small business. So we work with businesses of all different sizes. And to be a solutions partner means that we actually had to submit proof of execution documents of actual clients. And some of you guys have filled them out for us. Thank you if you have. But that basically, we have to turn it in, and they actually are pretty meticulous, right, Jamie, about like your contracts that you would do stuff, but what stuff in particular did you do? So we have to come back and actually dot our I's and cross our T's, but that's the proof that we're doing real modern. So modern work is the word for Microsoft 365, basically. And that being said, an additional proof we had to provide to Microsoft was this adoption and change management specialization, which means that we actually, again, had to do more work that we said we rolled out SharePoint and Teams, and we actually helped companies adopt the technology, which is exactly what we do. We are certified woman-owned business. And something else that I thought I want to mention, some of you are working through partners that we have a lot of trusted MSPs we work with. But if you are in a position where you're not working with an MSP and you are buying your licenses from Microsoft, let me know because we can offer you the same licenses at a discount rate, being a Microsoft service reseller. So we can beat Microsoft's prices if you decide to buy through us. So I will be leading this today. We have had other team members that have led other roundtables, but today I will be facilitating this. My name is Becky Bertram. If you don't know me already, I think everybody knows me. But I have also been a Microsoft, it's called an MVP. And the arrangement that Microsoft has is essentially MVPs, we go out to the community and we speak at community events. So for instance, we just had in May our Microsoft Community Day at St. Louis, where we created an entire conference for people to come. Not sure if any of you guys came to that, but basically I do evangelism for Microsoft, and in return, I get on the inner circle and direct access to the product teams. So that means I get all the earliest information of what's coming out, and then once a year I get to fly out to Seattle and go to their campus and meet directly with product team members. So that is something that I will say is it's an honor. You can't earn it. You have to be selected. But that is one thing I will say sets us apart because there's, I believe, only one other modern work MVP in St. Louis. So we have that unique distinction. I've passed 32 exams. That's a little like, I like taking exams. They're fun. And I even got to write them for Microsoft. And it's sort of that part of your brain that's like a train leaves Boston in New York. You have to like write it. It's just fun. And I have a paper published book that sits on my bookshelf, and it's turned yellow by now, but like claim to fame. And beside me is Jamie. You want to introduce yourself?
I'm Jamie Spainhour. I've talked with a lot of you via email, I think, so this is my face. I am Becky's executive assistant, business analyst for Savvy. I wear lots of different hats and do a lot of the behind the scenes work.
She is doer of all the things. That's what Jamie is. Extraordinary. We couldn't do this without her in every single way. And she will be managing the chat behind the scenes too. So those of you online, feel free to chime in, and we want to make sure that you guys feel included in this conversation. All right. So today we're just going to have the introductions, and then we'll have welcome remarks, and then we're going to go through our 4 speakers. So we're going to talk about effective ways to handle change within an organization. We have some videos, someone online, she wasn't able to be here in person, but she created some wonderful videos of how they actually created an agent for use in their organization. Sherman's going to be talking about how he's all in with AI. And Larry here will be speaking on how a corporate trainer uses Copilot Premium. There we go. And then we'll close it out. So this is sort of the general plan, and I'm going to try and keep it moving as the day goes on. So if we can start with just a quick around the table, just your name. We got your table tents, but for those online too, if you can have your name, your organization, and your job title, that would be helpful. Would you like to start?
Sure. Hi, I'm Dawn Niffin. I'm with the Desco Group, and I'm the Director Assistant Controller.
I am Jordan Jones. I also work at the Desco Group, and I am the controller there.
I'm Warren DeWine, again, with the Desco Group, the local representative today. I'm in the accounting department, I'm a manager.
I am Sue Ann Wardell, and I work for Walnut Park, which is Desco, so to speak. The farm, the department. And I am treasurer.
I'm Laura Gotkin, and I'm at Notion Partners. I'm creative director.
Hi, I'm Rico Sensini. I am with Notion Partners. It's a local full service creative firm, and I'm a strategy officer there.
I'm Nate. I'm with Coldwell Marketing, and I'm a project manager.
I'm Yolanda Dushevka. I'm a senior clinical trials manager of Pulse Biosciences, medical device company.
Jeff Holtmeyer Brazier, also with the Desco Group, and I'm a new leasing associate.
Kathleen Donahoe, Desco Group, and I'm in the legal department.
And my name is Lynn Rega, also with the Desco Group, and I have HR and IT operations.
Hi, I'm James Evans. By day, I'm an agile coach. By night, I run the Agile Phoenix, where I do AI enablement in my own business for small to medium businesses.
Larry Corley with Merits. For the past 5 years, I've been a Microsoft dedicated trainer for our company.
Is there anybody online that wants to introduce themselves? Several.
Yeah, I can go. I'm Joe Anger from Terminal Railroad. We've used Savvy for some projects, so I'm the sole IT person here. So I don't even, my title is IT Network Manager of Operations, something crazy. So, but yeah, they just call me the IT guy. So I pretty much do everything here for IT wise. So thanks.
Awesome, like Jamie, the doer of all the things. Yes. All right, anyone else? Sure.
I'm Sherman Lee from the Crossings Community Executive Director, and I'll give more during my piece. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Carrie Grybe, and I'm a process improvement and business systems consultant, and I have probably about almost 30 years background specifically in construction businesses. So yeah.
Thank you, Carrie, for joining. All right, is that it? Again, I don't have this screen with me, so I'm depending on. Go ahead.
Go, Brittany.
Hi, everyone. Just Brittany Gannon. I have the very clear title, just like the last person, of special projects at a small growing company trying to modernize some of our legacy IT systems. So happy to work, hopefully, with Becky and team to do some of that.
Awesome. Thank you for jumping on.
I might be last. Michelle Emery. I work with Larry at Merits. I am a senior technology project manager and love working with Jamie and Becky when we pull them into projects that I've got going on, which I have a couple more coming. So good to meet you all.
Awesome. Glad you could join. Thank you for coming. All right. Is that everybody online?
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. As you can see, we have a lot of different industries represented here, and we do not take it for granted that all of you have chosen to take the time to work with us today. And we know some are local and some are other places, and that's okay too. We are happy, we do work nationwide, but again, we're happy for everybody to take the time to spend the day with us and just to work with us in general. It's our privilege. So I'm going to take it's not really a survey. I mean, it's a survey, but a quick, if everybody can pull out their phone, do QR code or click on the link. I don't know, Jamie, if you could put that in the chat. This is just a quick, the survey is basically, what is your comfort level with Copilot? And what is one thing that if you could take off your plate? Like if there's one thing that Copilot could do to make your life better, or an agent, what would it be? If you put your name up there, you can. We can mention your name. If you want to be anonymous, you don't have to put that in there. Clearly, if I could have Copilot take my kids to all the afternoon activities, that would give me an extra 5 hours a day. But it can't do that yet. But in all seriousness, if there's something that you are like, man, it would be great if there's one process, one thing that we could do that could make this part of my job easier. Go ahead and noodle on that, put something in there. And in a minute, when that's done, we're just going to go and again, we'll read them out. We don't have to put your name there, but Jamie will, as those start coming in, might put some of those in the chat for us of what some of those answers are, because we just want to get a feel again for who's in the room and what are the kind of processes you do. Because there may be some people that are more sales oriented, more HR oriented, IT oriented, finance oriented, and the tools you're going to be working with or the kind of challenges you're trying to overcome are going to be very different than one another. And that's where we do want to be able to find the commonalities, learn from one another, and sort of talk through some of those. Just give it a couple minutes. Everybody is starting to key that in.
That's kind of hard.
It doesn't want to scan. Oh gosh. Oh, what happened to the screen? I didn't realize. Oh, right. Yeah. I didn't thank you. I didn't realize that it was so goofy. Okay, it's weird. I've never seen. Oh, there it goes. Now it's back. That was strange. Okay. Thank you for saying something again. It's behind me, so yeah, you'll have to let me know. All right. Jamie, I don't know if you have any answers. Are you able to pull up and get any of those answers? I think as people put in, the spreadsheet should auto update as well. Yeah. Sorry, it's just taking a minute for it to load all the answers, and we'll just start going through them just to get an idea. So, is there anybody here who hasn't used Copilot yet? I think pretty much everybody has already. Joe, have you guys started using Copilot yet at the Terminal Railroad?
I mean, we have users that have Copilot licenses. We have one user that he's pretty technical on his own, and he's built a few like bots within our SharePoint to search for certain, people can ask certain questions and it's directed towards just certain knowledge sources within SharePoint.
Nice.
So, I mean, I think that's been helpful because there's within our SharePoint, everybody likes to just put everything in there. So it's just kind of a catch-all. So it's hard for some people to, they're looking for a certain, with the Terminal Railroad, a lot of people that try to find information on certain rules or policies. And it's hard for them to find like where that policy or that rule is found. And then with his bot that he built, it'll search, any of those questions, it'll search those specific documents and give you return results. So, other than that, yeah, we just, like I said, we have a few Copilot licenses out there. I don't entirely know what our users are doing with them, but that's something I'm looking at, trying to manage what our, manage and monitor kind of what we're doing with Copilot. So I know you can do that with like Purview, and we also utilize another service product called Zscaler. That's our internet protection capabilities, and they have some tools within that where you can monitor kind of AI tools and block AI tools and things like that. But still waiting on executive management to give me some direction there on what I can do. So
That's a really good point. Microsoft did roll out sort of an agent management system, but of course you have to pay for that. So, but it does sort of keep track of that, those connections, because you're right. The thing about agents is they can call other agents, and then you can have the exfiltration of your data. So it does become important to think about that. But I really like what you're saying about having SharePoint agents to start with. And that's one of the benefits of having these sort of in-house agents to start with, because you already know they're sort of under the umbrella, so to speak, of Microsoft 365. And it's a great way to start getting your feet wet and seeing the value of that for sure. And what you said there too, I think is really important, that when Copilot first came out, everybody was really excited because it can see everything that you have access to. And then people began realizing, it can see everything that I have access to. And sometimes that's too much. And specifically, like you're saying, Joe, if there's policies and procedures and you don't want them accessing the policy from 2007, that's not going to be the accurate response, right? And so one of the things we talk with clients about is that, we had 30 years of Google first pioneering it, and then Microsoft went really deep on search relevance, right? That was this whole network of what's the relevant search results. And it's not just keyword search, but it would return the documents that were edited the most recently and were co-authored by people that and this kind of thing. Well, Copilot is natively random. It's randomized, right? And so the problem is it doesn't use the concept of relevance. It's not really the way it works. So it's really going and grabbing stuff that maybe would never have come back in a search result because maybe it's outdated and that kind of stuff. So we really work with clients on, we want to make sure it's secure, but also going through things like archiving policies, and let's make sure that your old data is really cleaned up so people are not tripping over it and getting inaccurate results. But I love what Joe's saying, because you can create SharePoint agents out of the box and they're just there, and you get to say this agent is only looking at these files or this site, and you're really scoping it. And so it's a way of ensuring if someone uses that agent, they're just getting that accurate information. Thank you, Joe. Do we have some results, Jamie?
We do. Let's see. You're wanting
just what we can improve on, I think.
Streamline cumbersome manual processes related to operations.
Okay.
Creating training decks in my style, not just a generic style. Prioritize tasks, taking notes, reasoning. Do first drafts of design. Again, that's with PowerPoint. Make Excel file users more user-friendly, I'm sorry. Streamlining planning and admin tasks. Track how IT services are being used with third-party support vendors. Analyze benefit invoices and compare prior months. Calling out different changes and such if it saw those. Creating and updating financial information and budgets and forecasts. Oh, provide a list every morning of what my plans are based on calendar and emails, both from inbox requests and what I'm waiting to have a response back on. Let's see. And just documentation.
Well, what I'm seeing here, what I really like, what I'm seeing out of these responses is, so I kind of think about AI as there's some tasks that are tactical and some that are strategic, right? So I'd say tactical is more like, how do I create a PowerPoint deck that has the right theme? Microsoft is building in a brand center in a Microsoft 365, but it is interesting because I was just doing a Copilot training for, it was last week. It was actually for the country's largest independent Pepsi bottler of all places in Cincinnati. And their brand manager was in there. And it was interesting because we've always been trained to say, use this corporate template, right, for PowerPoint. But with the brand center, you actually can go in and say, this is my colors, this is my font, this is my logo. But let Copilot create whatever it wants with this, right? Which is a very like, of course, our initial gut check reaction, if you are in sort of marketing or a brand, is like, no, that's awful. I spent so much time perfecting it. But I also kind of like, there's a part of me that goes, when we first created intranet sites back in the day, we created them for 1024 by 768 screens. And then when things went mobile, we were like, oh no, what do we do with vertical orientation? So this is one of those things where I think companies are having to go like, what does that look like, right? And so there's some change going on as how important is that we have the deck, or is it really just the brand, right? But having that idea, Microsoft is working on. But what I love also hearing is the strategic thinking. It's not just what are my tasks, but prioritize my tasks. That's harder, right? Like that is sort of that cognition level, but it can be, if you can guide on what is the most important, then how can we train the AI for that? And I heard here too, how can PowerPoints be in my voice? So Microsoft has released Work IQ, which is this idea of, it's sort of a branding catch-all term, but the idea behind Work IQ really is that it's learning your voice, right? It's learning what you do. So the hope is that over time, when you're writing content and writing slide decks, the more you can train its voice, it will know what you do. When I was preparing for this class, I was trying to give an example of a generic prompt. So I wrote the prompt in, create a slide deck for me. And it actually came back and said, would you like me to create a slide deck on Microsoft 365 that you can present at a conference? I was like, wow, like I gave it an intentionally extremely vague prompt and it actually knew who I was and what I do a lot of the time. And so that was pretty remarkable to me. So, and then when you hear about the spreadsheets, yes, with Claude incorporated now with Opus, you can actually go to a spreadsheet and say, add a new sheet, create a chart that's based on this table filtered by that, or create a pivot table, and it will actually generate that all for you. So again, getting back into tactical, it can do stuff for you so much faster. Again, I had someone that was like, why even use lookup tables anymore? Just tell it and it will copy the data or source it for you, and we don't even have to do all the VLOOKUPs and stuff like that. But I also hear about that strategic, help me compare data between months, right? This is getting into forecasting and what are the trends? What are the things that maybe people wouldn't be able to see? And so that's the other thing we want to be able to think about with Copilot. What are the strategic things we can use it? The tactical things are going to save us time, but that strategic also is what helps us think about our day. And that gets back into the sort of the next thing I want to kind of ease into, which is sort of talking about the current state of Copilot and AI and Microsoft. I feel like this slide is a little bit all encompassing because again, I don't have time to deep dive into it. The current state is such a changing thing day by day that, it'll be the current state for a week, until it's something else. But I do want to talk about some of the changes that I have seen happening. this is not from Microsoft. This is like Becky's take on things. All right. This is just by reading a lot and seeing a lot. Essentially, when Microsoft first rolled out Copilot, they charged $30 a month per user, which considering your entire license for all your Microsoft services was like $22 a month. It really felt like a lot for a lot of people. And you couldn't sign up for it for 1 month. You had to commit to the whole year. Well, Microsoft's like, this is the best thing since sliced bread. And then nobody bought their licenses. So they had, or everybody was like, and then this ChatGPT, they started having this free version. So they released the Bing version for free, right? So then really nobody was buying it. And they really had a problem because, you know, they were trying to be first to market and their sales were just awful. But AI is incredibly expensive, right? So they really couldn't discount it much. So they were sort of in a pickle. So then they spent the first, like after 6 months or a year of it, they spent the last year really building these agents, these built-in agents. So you could have a planner agent, and then we got into Word, PowerPoint, Excel agents, all these agents built in, which needed to be there, right? You need to be able to tell the agent to actually create the document, not just take this and copy and paste it into there, right? This needed to happen. But what I see is the price point was up here. The value is down here. So they're like, nobody's buying it. We've got to increase the value. So they didn't reduce the cost because they couldn't, because AI costs money, but they increased that value. But then the value started going past the cost. So now I see Microsoft being like, oh, we've got to increase that cost to keep up with this, right? Because AI is expensive. So what we see now is the sort of supply and demand, as everybody's seen, data center capacity and whatnot. So Microsoft is now moving to a pay-per-play model. So before they were basically like, well, if you don't buy a Copilot license, you're going to be charged per call. But hey, if you get this really expensive license, you get this all for free. It's sort of a freemium model, right? Now they're like, oh, you have to have the Copilot license and we're going to charge you. So, and it's just because, again, there's not enough data centers to meet the supply. What I see is over time, as data centers get built, which we all know is a really sticky wicket right now for society in general. So I'm just telling you from a purely supply and demand standpoint, what I'm seeing. We'll see if this flies. But the good thing is that I'll say to backtrack this all to say is, so if you don't know what co-work is basically this idea of, let me back up. Copilot is like a personal agent. You give it a prompt and it does something, and then you give it another prompt and it does something else. Agents are really a way of being able to like daisy chain a lot of this stuff together. Or like we said, every morning, make sure this is on a timer job, right? Every day I want this to happen. Well, if you can use natural language and just use text to say what the agent should do, and then it just sort of magically happens, that's incredible. There's value to that. But I want you to say that this pricing change, you can still effectively use Copilot without diving into the pay-per-go Copilot co-work scenario. So some companies are going to be reticent to turn that on because you can clearly rack up some bills. So this is sort of a rough estimate that Microsoft has put out there. So a knowledge source, like Joe mentioned, is like this SharePoint site, this document, this spreadsheet. So if you just are basically like, hey, can you do this one thing for me every day, check my email and prioritize it, that may cost $1 to $3 per time. If you get into the medium, which is, hey, I want you to scan my email, send me a Teams message, and also shoot off an email to someone else about what's going on, and you start going into that. That would be 3 to 7. And then heavy is really when you get into these heavy workflows that are going on with Copilot. A lot of people in our industry are understandably upset about this because we've spent the last 2 years just getting anybody and everybody, please just experiment, just try, you know, because all of us are trying to wrap our mind around what it does. All of a sudden, this is going to stifle innovation. which is unfortunate. But on the plus side, what this is really doing is Microsoft, when they first rolled it out, was very much like, they had these little calculators. You save 10 minutes, with Copilot. Like, I always felt like it was like the water bottle counters, when you go to the airport, we've saved 300,000. And I'm like, really? Is that, you're like, how accurate is that? I always felt like the minute counters are like, they were desperately trying to show value, right? It's one thing to show how many minutes you saved and how many dollars that could be. This is putting a real dollar amount to those tasks. And it's really going to make us all say, how are we using AI? And this can be a negative thing, but I think all of us in our job really need to stop and say, what am I really spending time on that's really not worth my time, right? I mean, hopefully all of us in this room are getting more than $3 an hour. So it's one of those things, again, not that these would be hour-long tasks, but this is one of those things where everybody's like, well, with AI, you can scale and it's like you having an extra person on staff. Well, what happens if this becomes an extra person on staff? But on the flip side, what if you do all these things and all of a sudden you do have a lot more time? I'm just saying it's going to bring clarity to the value story, right? Because it's one thing to vet time minutes. It's another thing to actually have a ledger item of what was the value to this, right? So just saying this is a significant change. But again, I don't want to say that this is all of it. You don't have to use co-work, but a lot of people have found a lot of value in it. So it is what it is. We'll see we're in a capitalist society. So Microsoft could try it. It may not fly. They may figure out, they may be like, we're going to start charging it, but that cost is going to go from $1 down to 10 cents. I've seen it happen before. So I would expect that to happen. Again, supply and demand. So the next thing I want to talk about that I thought was really great is Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, posted something on the, it was a big article actually on X of all places. It was a little essay. And he talked about the learning loop. And he talked about human capital and token capital. And he talked about the idea that it's a lot of people are chasing what's the latest model, what's going to do the latest thing. And his, I don't usually like to read stuff straight up, but this is such a good start to this article that I did want to read it to be able to just to read out what he said, because I thought the first part of it really captures what I thought was a very well summed up way of where we are. Again, this week, change next week. But right now,
reconnect to your screen.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I don't know why it keeps timing out. It's the strangest thing because my computer is not asleep or anything. So we'll see it. Okay. So he said, I'm thinking a lot about the future of the firm in an AI-driven economy. This transition is different than any previous shift. In the past, we used digital systems to enhance human capital. This is the first time we can create a real cognitive loop between people and digital systems. This is a mind bender because it changes how we even conceptualize work inside an enterprise. What is at stake is not some digital tool or system and its use, but how organizations continue to learn, build IP, differentiate, and thrive in a world where AI models can continuously absorb the expertise of humans and organizations can commoditize it. Every company is going to have to build what I think of as human capital and token capital. Human capital comprises the knowledge, judgment, relationships, ingenuity, and pattern recognition of its people, while token capital is the firm's AI capability it builds and owns. Importantly, human capital does not become less valuable as token capital grows. It only becomes more valuable. I believe human agency will be the driver of token capital growth. Humans will set ambitious goals, connect dots across domains, build relationships, and recognize patterns that matter most. Without human direction, you have compute running in circles. This means the real opportunity is not in picking the best model, but instead in building a learning loop on top of models where human capital and token capital compound. You can offload a task or even a job, but you can never offload your learning. The future of the firm is the ability to compound that learning across people and AI. This requires a new architectural approach where every business is able to build agentic systems that improve over time while still retaining control over the IP. A company should be able to switch out a generalist model without losing the company veteran expertise built into the learning system. This is the key test of your control and sovereignty in the era ahead. To summarize there, he just means if you switch out Opus for ChatGPT, you shouldn't be like, oh my goodness, everything just went belly up. You should have a way of you own the knowledge and the IP so that it's yours. That's what makes your company special. Companies need to turn their workflows, domain knowledge, and accumulated judgment into AI systems that approve with each use. Private evals should capture whether a model is actually improving against outcomes that matter to the business, not just external benchmarks. Private reinforcement learning environments should let models grow stronger on real traces from inside the organization. Its knowledge base makes institutional memory queryable and the use of tokens more efficient. This loop becomes the new IP of the firm. I like that because I think if I could sum up what he was saying, is he's saying there's this quest for learn. But I know from our personal experience, Jamie and I, we can both attest, we're constantly like, oh, this process didn't work. We've got to improve that. All of us should be working towards process improvement all the time, right? Like all of us. This is just almost like having a coworker where we're having different process improvement. So they're saying, but the key is you shouldn't have a process and so at the end, we have a human that's going to approve it. You know, create the process and the human approval, process, human approval. Then you're not really learning. You're just having, if I'm on a assembly line and we're bottling, you know, Anheuser-Busch and every beer lid is, you know, every 10th one is missing its lid. Well, we need to fix the machine, not just put more people, you know, QAing the lids, right? So it's one thing to say, well, we have AI with a human element in there, but we really need to figure out how do we really enhance that the AI that's taking place. And that's based on humans knowing, hey, I know what a bottle's supposed to look like and it's not supposed to be missing its lid, right? So these saying that's where that human capital comes in. That's where we are driving the AI. We're not just QAing the AI. Does that make sense? I thought that was a really great key. That was like on June 14, he wrote that. And I just thought, what a great way, because the one of the guys at Microsoft, one of the head VPs made some quote that like all white collar jobs would be gone in the next 5 years. And everybody was like, oh my gosh. So, you know, this is sort of taking that temperature down a little bit. And that's what we really hope to see at the companies we work with is really how can we use this to improve that process? Does anybody have any thoughts or feedback on that or how, I mean, what do you guys think of that? I know it's a very open-ended question, but does that resonate with you guys?
I mean, it actually does. If I peel that back a little bit, before we learn, there has to be a willingness to share. So now we're getting into that psychological safety piece first. You got to set the stage first and set a stage where people are willing to share that information in order for this thing to learn. If that psychological safety isn't there, are they going to get the information? Are they going to get the right information? Are they going to be so concerned about their jobs? Like, no, I'm not. I'm going to tell you something totally wrong just to throw you off. So it starts off with psychological safety, which drives that learning loop.
That is so important. Oh my goodness, you are right. If you have people at your organization that are consciously or unconsciously working against it, you're right. There has to be that feeling of this is empowering and not terrifying because I'm going to lose my job. Yeah, so yeah, emotional. Yeah, I love it. I love it. Very true. Any other thoughts?
Looks like Brittany. Do you have a hand up?
Yeah, I was going to say it's a great distinction because I have had a lot of people request an agent be built for them. And then when I ask the questions and dig in, they don't need an agent. They just need a process identified and followed through. So trying to explain that to people, I think this is a really nice summarization and kind of level set for how process is necessary to build successful agents, but what the link is between that and where the people will always be involved in it.
You know, I'm so glad you said that, because there's a certain part of me that was like, when I keep hearing about autonomous agents and everybody's like, all they can think of are, um, nuclear war and Terminator and, planes autonomously bombing another. I mean, there's some really terrifying stuff out there, but I'm like, I've been building programs since 1999, and programs run on their own. That's what they do. They're programs. I've been building timer jobs since we had to like build it into Windows, and so a lot of this stuff, to your point, you're like, this is not new. And we've been building as a company Power Platform solutions using Power Automate and Power Apps and these solutions for a very long time. So I never worried about our work being, I had a lot of people, 20 years, when globalization happened like 30 years ago, right? Like, are you worried about your job being outsourced overseas? And I was like, not really, because to your point, Brittany, really, especially with the low code platform, literally 50% of our work is defining the process. And we sit down with people and define it. I'm like, once you give me the process, building it is easy compared to just defining it, right? So yeah, incredibly important point that Copilot can help you come up with ideas, but yeah, the process is yours. It's a human process because you know what needs to get done.
Before we transition into James, Sherman's got something I think you wanted to say.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to chime in about the response to this. And I find it amusing that Microsoft and others use the term agent when this fear of AI emotionally from a human perspective is for humans to figure out, all humans want is agency within their own work group, right? And actually it's true of any context, in anything that you do, people want agency. And the other big thing about AI is, will I have a place in the future? Where will I be? Because it's fear about losing my job or having to do work that I don't like to do. So I'm thrilled. I'm going to go and read this learning loop thing again and again. So thank you for sharing that.
So thank you, Sherman. All right, so thank you guys for that little just sort of thought experiment, I don't know if it's experiment, but just sort of taking a step back. I think, why do we do what we do? And what is this paradigm shift? Just because, and I kind of wanted to paint the picture of everybody's been trying to figure out what AI is and how we actually make it work for us. And so that's where, when I say current state, I think this is where the current thinking is. And again, it's going to morph as we figure out the business model, from Microsoft's cost model, business model, and then our business model of how we use it. I think it's going to become clear over time, and it's going to become more habitual for us to use it. And that's kind of why we want to partner with you guys to be able to make that happen for your organizations. But I really liked that human-centric approach because I've said it to many of you guys before. When it first came out, we all also, as humans, we were like, as consultants, I'm not trying to train people so they can lay people off. Like, that's not the business I want to be in, right? Like, but we do know that if we can empower the companies, the truth is, if you don't harness this, this is what's going to give you that competitive edge, and that's what's going to be necessary. So our satisfaction as people wanting to help other people really is to help you guys all be successful so your businesses can thrive. And that's what we want, is to extend that human reach, not to have people lose jobs. That's not the goal here. Okay, so the next section, we're going to have 4 different speakers for the remainder of the time here. We're going to start off with James, and then we're going to move to Carrie, and then to Sherman, and then to Larry. James, you have the floor for 20 minutes.
Okay. Are you clicking for me?
I can do that. You just let me know when to click.
Okay, cool. Hey everyone, James, the Agile Phoenix, and Becky's already set the stage for me already. The learning loop. The learning loop has been just determined involves change, It involves bringing people together with the process. So my goal here is to give us some effective ways to navigate that change and know that change exists not only in our workplaces, but also in our life spaces too. 15 years in the agile space. Anyone familiar with agile? Agile is a transformation type process. Just know that it involves change. So you can imagine you're a person coming into a company, they want to start this new process, change. Here we are with AI, change. Go ahead to the next slide. One of my favorite writers is Robin Sharma. Love his writings, and this particular statement has carried me through my life space and my workspace because it's a constant. Change is hard up front, messy in the middle, and gorgeous at the end. Anyone that's Tuckman's growth patterns, storming, norming, performing, change. We got kids at home, storming, norming, performing. We got relationships, you're navigating these changes there, you're navigating new ideas. Robin Sharma, and change. But one thing, as much as change is a constant, as much as we know that change is here, go to the next slide. The only people that truly like change are babies. Nobody else likes change. And the challenge now is how do we navigate that change, knowing A, that no one likes change, and how do we move that needle into acceptance? Let's go to the next one. So people are the hard part, not the technology, because we all have our own ideas, our own paradigms, our own approaches, our own beliefs, and we bring those not only to our workspaces, but our life spaces, and they help to drive our decision making. So organizations are already doing the technology piece. They're already exploring Microsoft Copilot, AI agents. They're doing these things. But technology usually isn't the biggest obstacle. It's the adoption side. And that's the people, the habits, the workflows, and the comfort levels. The big one here is, and we kind of touched on it already, is people need to understand the why. It's important that they understand the why, whether you're installing something at work, you're doing something new at home. Why are we doing this? What's wrong with the old way? So your first nugget there is, even though as we work in leadership and our organizational sides, people need to understand the why. Sometimes I work for Accenture for like 4 or 5 years as well, working with diamond clients. And when I work with my directors, they entrust their direct reports to navigate their conversation down. But oftentimes it gets diluted, it gets twisted, it gets turned, and you never understand the real why. So one of the things that helps to navigate that change is that that person is the one that gives that particular speech or that particular presentation, because that helps people understand the space, buy into the space. Buy-in is important. If they understand the buy-in piece, if they understand the why behind it, now you're starting to create a conversation where people are willing to, okay, I get it. Now, let me see if I like it, but I get it. If they don't get it, it's harder to move that needle. When you get into your resistance, you get into your pushback, you get into something called salary retaliation on the job. You familiar with that word? We're probably familiar with it, but we don't know it as that. It's actually, let's say your boss wants you to do something, and suddenly there's a meeting for it. Suddenly you're unavailable. Oh my God, I've got this meeting. I didn't know what's happening. Oh my God, my kids, my wife, my husband, my partner. I just can't make it. I hate that. When in actuality, they're really not good. Salary retaliation, emails not being responded to. Think about home, because these things are constants. If you're at home and you have a text or a decision that you have to make through text, sometimes we don't respond. Anyone know what ghosting? All versions of silent retaliation. So in the workspace, it's important that you understand why that's happening and move the needle in understanding why it's happening and set up stages to move and understand that. Go to the next one here. So let's talk about, you heard me give a few nuggets already around the signs that your adoption is not working. Let's say you're setting that stage, you're pitching this AI thing, it could be agile, it could be AI. You've got your big powwow meeting like this. You're like, okay, minions, go out and go forth and conquer, But then you see, what are signs that they're not, but what's happening? And these are signs that it's not working. First, you get the immediate pushback. 15 years in the AI space, in agile space, working as scrum master, coaches, directors, you bring in agile. We're not doing that. That's been tried before. We're not doing this. This doesn't make a bit of sense. pushback. Sometimes, as those that are driving that change, sometimes it's valid, sometimes it's not. We're going back to that why statement. Okay, why is the pushback? Oftentimes it's because they have some perception of AI in our example that's not really accurate. Sometimes it's job security, but it's important to get back to that why. And sometimes if you have those conversations and you say, okay, the why here really isn't that they don't like it, they're afraid of their jobs. So now we need to this is why I work with my leadership. Here's another thing. This is where you say, we need you to come in front and tell these people how this is going to affect their jobs, what you're going to do as an organization, what you're not going to do, how can they see themselves in this process. That helps them to understand, and oftentimes that's the reason they're pushing back. There may be other times where they've been educated in a certain way. This is where you educate them in a different way. Like, look, that's the kind of then, but this is what we're doing here. And so it helps with them understand, okay, now I understand. Now I feel a little bit better. It's not the end all be all team, because there are going to be some naysayers. They're just locked in. I'm not going to do it. But what you want to do is try to set up opportunities where you can separate the two. Because in anyone that's worked in a leadership or a team space, there's going to be some that are going to move forward. Some are going to take a little bit longer. They're going to sit back and watch. You got another set, I'm just not doing it. Maybe it's because they're getting ready to retire. Maybe because they don't want to stay there. But you learn to separate those. And of course, there are those that say, I don't want to do this. I'm going to go back to the way it's done. They see anything wrong with the way we're doing it already. I'm going to go back to the way we did it before, falling back to the media processes. You see this in your data. You'll see where if they have an opportunity to fall back to an existing process, they'll fall back to it sometimes. So when you see them resorting back to that former process, maybe we're deploying something, we give them 30 days, 90 days to transition. You see if they're gung-ho at first, all of a sudden, they're going back to the old system. Why are they going back? So there's another conversation, and that's where you get into that why again. So look at symptoms of where they're falling back to existing processes. Usually starts fast and starts to crawl. They're gung-ho, then they fall back. Why are they falling back? There's that why question again. Why are they falling back? Is it because they've got more work? Is it because they don't want to do it, period? Is it because they just said it just to get out of the meeting and just nod their heads, but they really don't want to do it? You're looking at your symptoms and you peel that back like an onion. Think about your five questions. Why? So you can get to the root cause there. And then of course, let's say that you are implementing, now you got shadow AI. You've implemented this new AI process, shadow AI. Who knows what shadow AI is by name?
What does it mean? Like using AI without either telling people you're using it or using programs that aren't maybe approved by your company, like your personal accounts?
Exactly right. So you start seeing shadow AI and sometimes getting back to the why. Why are we using shadow AI? Maybe the configuration we have at work is too restrictive because we set up these processes that are good from a governance standpoint, but they're not good from a working standpoint. So this is where you have to create spaces with your feedback. So, we're seeing this, what's happening. And you create that psychological safety. What I've done is created psychological safety spaces where people will weigh in on their ideas of the AI process. If you start looking at that data where they're giving those responses and you start seeing conversations like, well, yeah, I did it and this is what I did with it. And you say, the system can't do that. How did they get this done? If the system isn't set up to do that. So you have to kind of read the tea leaves. But this all goes back to getting the data, creating a space where they're comfortable sharing the data, and then reading the data. So they set it and forget it because people, we have the attention span of like net now. I think the attention span is so short that if they're not getting it, they don't understand it, they'll switch if they can. Let's go next. So what do successful organizations do in this case? They make it relevant. In this case, we connect Copilot to the real work people do every day. What that means is you're going to the people before you put this thing out there and say, this is what we're thinking about doing. Leadership person should be there too to help with the buy-in side of it. This is what we're envisioning doing. How do you see this working in your space? This is where you get an understanding. put this in your space. How do you see yourself using it? Well, I wouldn't use that. Well, maybe we don't want to use this piece right now. Maybe we need to make that a second co-op, a second phase of it. So you get your people involved. You have them understand, and you understand how they're going to use it real time. That helps you to craft something that's actually usable for them. But the big piece is that it sets the buy-in. If they understand that they're part of the process, they're willing to share more. They're the ones that are going to help you see around those corners now. Or between you and the wall, this is what we do. So you set that trust in place, you get that feedback, then you craft a conversation and a product that they can use and give you feedback, which are continuous improvement now. So you set that stage where you make it relevant by pulling them into the space. Start small. You don't want to start this whole wave of a thing. You just kind of do one small piece. Think of an MVP, minimum viable product. If you have a big rollout, just pick one team. Maybe if you can, one area versus an whole area. The opposite word is small. Pick a small set, bring some people along. Ideally, your influencers. You get the influencers involved, which may not always be the leader of the group. It's whoever the influencer is, because that may not be the leader. That might be the person that's just been there 30 years. They listen to them. They're the person that take breaks with them. They're the one that can move that needle and get them involved also to help move their process forward. And that takes us to the third one. Let the peers lead. Because people like to see themselves in the process. If they see a person like me, okay, this is this consulting guy here. He's not one of us. He doesn't know the walls weren't built around him like me. So you want to get these people involved because that helps them connect with the process and they can see themselves there. And it also helps with the buy-in too. If they see their own selves, if they're supposed to help to lead that initiative. It's where you leverage your champions, your communities. So now I'll call you my team of the day. Let's flip the script. So you kind of see what any of those same things that we talked about, you see in your spaces and where you think people are getting stuck from your space, from your perspective. And I always encourage people to think from a personal standpoint. Remember, I always say we're people first. Where before we become directors, leaders, employees, think of yourself as a person first. Do you want to read a whole long text? Most people don't. So why would you make a process that's 5 pages long? People are not going to read it. So think about things from a human standpoint and your own personal standpoint as well. So I'll open it up for everyone. What should organizations be doing? Anyone that does retrospectives, start, stop, continue. What should organizations start, stop, or continue as it relates to change? Let's hear your thoughts. Learning mode enable.
I'm happy to share. We see all of this in our company. Laura can speak to it too. I've been sort of championing AI for our company since probably last summer or before. Not because I love AI or I want to, it's just the gap that I see in the business and the opportunities or the lack of, the lost opportunities I see for the business in the future. Because I spent a lot of time thinking about the business. And I think the challenge is that a lot of people aren't thinking about the business, they're thinking about their role and their job and their tasks and their immediate client needs or manager needs and things like that. And so there is a gap in the awareness of the importance and significance of this change. And so I like how you're reinforcing the why, because we are really trying to talk about it outside of just the models. We're trying to talk about it as far as more of a behavior change. And we've done some lunch and learns on growth mindset to get more into the mental space of you have to think differently, act differently. And the simplest form is people aren't used to being in the architect role within our organization. They're used to following a system that someone developed in the past and saying, what's the process? Where do I fit? Tell me what to do. Versus you now have the opportunity to influence the process to make your job easier and have a little more autonomy or authority in doing so. And that someone else in my position can't tell you how to get there. It's a little bit like raising children for teenagers. very similar, is what I'm experiencing. And then as the leader, some of these things, you know, are good reminders of what I could be doing as a leader to create that psychological space. We recently created an AI council that Laura's in, because I need the department leads to really also be leading that charge, and making it a priority for our business.
I've been talking to some of our younger employees and they're just overwhelmed on what to start. Like, where do I start? You know, we kind of said like, here's how to think about yours, but they're like, what tools, where do I go? There's so many different solutions out there. Like, where do I get started? And so like talking them through like just, you know, baby stuff, start by doing this, see where it gets you, and giving them the autonomy, but the tools to get started.
I mean, that's so important. I will say to your point there, it's always important. Even with people with them, what's in it for me?
Oh,
People need to know, okay, I see what you're saying. I'm understanding intellectually what you're saying. I see the value add from a business standpoint, but what is this going to do for me? So we always have to make sure we set the stage from the business perspective. Then we have to get into their workspace and say, this is how it's going to benefit your job.
yeah.
If we put AI in, this is going to take your call volume down because that'll give you more time to do something else. We had this right up because we were not answering our calls quick enough. This will help lower that load for you. So they need to understand how it's going to impact them in their space as well as the business side of it. But it starts by getting them to understand why am I doing this? Because I'm just fine where I am right now. So that's one thing. The other side of it is, I mean, they need a roadmap of some sort because you're going to have there's so many options in the AI space. I call it shiny object syndrome. You know, they're just all over the place. So they need some kind of roadmap of what to do and what they can't do or shouldn't do, and guardrails. I don't say boundaries. I don't know crazy about the word boundaries, but guardrails because they don't know. And there's so many options out there that they want to do a good job. They want to hit the ground running. They're building out their careers. They don't want to make a mistake. So they need some sort of roadmap also with the autonomy that they can flex it if they want to. And that goes back to talking to the people, understanding their pain points, because for a young person, they may have different pain points than someone that's been on the job for 20 years. So understand the pain points, but it all goes back to setting down some sort of guidelines. So the youngsters, I call them fresh faces. So the fresh faces have something to work in. Anything else? How am I doing on time? Because
I was gonna say, that's actually perfect. You're at time. That was like perfectly timed. I know, I wish we had more time. I would just want to say, I'm so glad. So I ran into James because he actually attended another conference that I was at and he was at. And as I talked with him, I was like, the first time I talked with you, I was like, you lended so much wisdom to even our own business. Because believe it or not, as a consulting company, with everything moving so fast, we feel like our job is to shepherd other people, other companies. But sometimes it's hard when you feel like you're only 5 minutes ahead of everything else. It's moving so fast. And so the words of wisdom you gave me about how to navigate this change, I just everything you said, I'm just going, yes, 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 yes. Because we see that also with the companies we work with. So
I mean, it's hard because we've got this moving train. We've got this moving train. How do you maintain the speed?
Exactly.
People we have to report to as well. Why isn't this train moving? So
yeah,
it comes about this.
It's a lot. Well, I want to say if anybody is interested in speaking with us, we are happy to bring James in to work with any of you guys as another team member just on this organizational change. I think this is wonderful at the leadership level and to people in the organization too, to talk about this, because as we're all seeing here, it's much more holistic. If people come into this as this is a new technology, it's just like learning a new CRM or a new email tool. If you think about it as a tool, that's not what it is. And you're right, you have to really set that groundwork to really change that thinking. I like what you said about you're asking people to think at a higher level than what they're used to thinking at. That is so true, right? And I really like that because you're right, we can't ask people. Sometimes when we're in leadership, we just assume that everybody's thinking that way. And sometimes it is hard to remember, oh, right, that's my job as a leader. That may not be their job as a leader, right? And so, like you said, what's in it for him?
I mean, that goes back into knowing your people. because you've got one set that they're getting ready to retire, they may be on the same team. I don't want to do, I just want to go watch the kids and watch guys smoking. But then you got another set, fresh out of college. I want to be challenged mentally. And if I'm not challenged mentally, I'm going to pack up and go somewhere else. So it's a matter of having that space for both and then having them coexist. Sorry.
Thank you so much, James. All right, we're going to move on to Carrie. Carrie is on the call. So she did a wonderful job of recording some videos for her. So that she recorded 3 different videos of the process. And again, we've been working with cold grading, and this has been awesome. But you're called the professional services as well. So Carrie works specifically on that process improvement, like she said. And so we're going to walk through these videos. Those online, I think I'm sharing sound, but let me know if you guys can't hear it online. All right.
Was a manual spreadsheet that was being kept up by one estimator. All the estimators on the team were sending their information to one estimator. He was compiling everything that they were bidding or planning to bid, and with all the necessary information on the spreadsheet, and then he would bring that to a meeting once a week. And this was their opportunity to kind of look at sort of what was on the board. It was, how do we sort of take that responsibility off of him, but yet still collect all the information that was necessary. So we created an email address that's specific to just collecting this information. And one of the things we did was we specified that the emails had to come from within the internal domain so that we weren't receiving a bunch of junk. And so they can actually send or forward an email like a solicitation, and we can get the information that we need from that. This is just a sample of some stuff I kind of threw together with a little bit of fun stuff in there that I hope the guys would notice and maybe find a little entertaining. So this is just a sample email that will certainly, you'll see just in a second how that all plays out. So
Carrie, are we good to move on? I didn't know if you wanted to, do you want me to go through all 3 of them before you jump in?
Whichever. And if it's too difficult for people to hear, I don't know. I know it kind of seemed like it was a little, I don't know if everybody can't hear it, I can actually just do a voiceover.
Okay, we have the TV was very quiet. Let me see if I can, if you want to, maybe you can recap what was in the video.
Sure. So, what was in the video really is just that there was a manual process where there was one estimator within the company that was tracking what bids were, what the estimators were planning on bidding. So all the estimators would send an email to this particular estimator, and he would put all the information in an Excel spreadsheet. Then they meet once a week, and he brings the spreadsheet and they kind of talk about timelines and whether it's possible, not possible, all of those things. And it was like, this is just a manual process, and how can we take this off of his plate? There's some future things that we want to continue to advance with this, but the first piece of it really was, just getting the information and getting it without having him do the manual part. So we created an email address, and you can send an email to the specific email address with information about the bid. And what's great about it is, they were very specific. They were like, we want to be able to forward a bid invite. And if anybody in the room has ever seen a bid invite, sometimes it's been passed around 5 and 6 times. And so we're talking the information can be kind of deep and long, and that's what they wanted. They didn't want to have to create just like what I did here, just as a sample, because I didn't want to share any proprietary information, but which they can also do. They're sitting on their couch and they're like, oh, I just thought about something and I need to get that in the list. So, they put the information in and then it fills into the next stage. So you can go ahead and flip to the next one. So this is a Microsoft list that I created columns to collect the information. It looked identical, going back to what James said is like buy-in is everything. So I took what they already had pre-existing and I made it look literally identical for them, with knowing that maybe in the future we would change it up a little bit, but we did not want to, I wasn't there to rock the boat out of the gate, right? We're going from a manual process to an automated process, like the buy-in is everything. So you can see we have the columns here, and from that email, which I did try to be somewhat humorous for the guys, because I thought when I did this over the weekend or whatever, that they would see this one that said if they signed the NDA by Friday, everyone would get free boots. I did actually get some messages on Monday morning about that. They thought that it was actually like that we had a, it was like, some sort of actually a test. They thought it was a test, like that they clicked on something, we have clickers that they shouldn't have, but so the information fills into the Microsoft list. And then, that part is done for them, which is nice. And then they bring this information, they can talk about it. I guess they don't even bring it. They just, open it up on the screen when they have their meeting, and they can go through everything. So, yeah, that's pretty much that.
And then we'll move to the next screen.
Yeah. So, so how I did it, was really to create this cloud flow, receiving those emails from that specific email address, which is, we really narrowed it down to where it can really just receive emails from, within the company. And so let's see, hopefully we'll move on to the next part. Then, basically just really using AI through a prompt. And this is the part I think that is probably, a bit tricky, because what you end up doing is you create these prompts, right? And then you test it and you realize that it's not providing exactly what you want. So you go back and you modify your prompts, which that can, take a little bit of time. And then, of course, lo and behold, then you test it and it looks great. And then when it actually gets to the Microsoft list, it doesn't look great. And so you have to go back and make additional modifications, or call Becky or someone within Becky's office. Because it becomes frustrating, but that's like part of it. This is how we learn, right? So so this is kind of the background, or the behind the scenes of how I did that. And then we create the items next. So it's not a complicated process. But it automated that. And then, again, we created a framework of what we want this to look like long term. And this was just the first step. So baby steps is always good. And that's really all I have, if anybody has any questions.
Carrie, this is what I absolutely love about what you did, is it gets back to the previous comments we were making about the fact that a lot of the processes people want are just processes, and we've been building Power Automate workflows as a company for clients for as long as it's been out, which is like almost a decade, maybe 8 years, 7 years, I've lost track. But what I love about it is this is how you're showing how you can build a pretty repetitive process. A process has to be the same every time. That's what makes it a process. But you're embedding that prompting in there to be able to generate the text, to grab the information, which is easier than going in and setting variables and all this kind of stuff. And so I think this is a great example of how using Copilot Studio can seem kind of intimidating for some folks, but really at the end of the day, we're still building processes not that different than the way we did it before, but finding that strategic way to embed a little bit of AI at just the right time. Because again, a process is always the same. AI is inherently random. So how do we marry those two things and having the power of natural language, but be able to have that randomness not be a risk, but actually be a benefit? And I think this is a great, and be able to show what that looks like in the design surface, this low code design surface shows that it's not too difficult, but to your point, like any developer, I mean, developers, that's what we do, right? We try it, we tweak it, we change it, we modify it. And so there is definitely work that needs to happen there. And you are not scared of that. That's what you are familiar with and doing. This may be a lot to ask a Joe user to do, but definitely having that process to be able to talk through the business process and then turn it into a step-by-step flow like this, you can see where it's an attainable goal for a lot of organizations. And I think that visual, being able to see the visual steps too helps a lot. So this is a great example. Thank you. Does anybody else? Sorry.
This is called Flow.
No, this is called Copilot Studio. So Copilot Studio, Microsoft has something called the Power Platform that's been around for a long time. It was first created for power users until they realized very quickly, as we see here, that's probably a hill too steep to climb for most power users. So now they call them citizen developers. But it really is, I will say, I spent I started out as a developer. So I spent a decade coding C# SharePoint solutions. And so for me, low code solution is just a very much faster way to code, but you still have to have some of these design thinking on, like we talked about. So this the Power Platform has Power BI for data visualization, Power Apps for forms, if you want to forms, Power Automate for workflows, Power Virtual Pages for basically extranet websites. And then this used to be called Power Virtual Agents. Back in the day before AI, it was still an agentic workflow. So then they rebranded it Copilot Studio, and it's not, I mean, they've changed it to fit to Copilot now and to build agents, but at a certain degree, this platform has been around for a while, and that's one of the great things is this, they didn't have to create it as soon as AI hit. It's actually a fairly mature product that they are morphing a lot to fit the scenario. Yeah.
But this was created in Copilot Studio. The average user that has a Copilot license would not have Copilot Studio.
The licensing thing is a little weird. If you are just accessing Copilot, if you are creating an agent that is only accessed using Copilot Premium and you're only accessing product loads within Microsoft 365, then it's free. But you can build Copilot Studio flows that if they are connecting to premium connectors outside other platforms, or if it's going to be embedded on a website, there are other pay-to-play models in there. And they are also, because some people are trying to get around the co-work pricing, they're trying to not let this be a backdoor to get around Copilot pricing. So the pricing model is a little bit in flux right now, but I believe it's still free as long as, like here, she's just accessing Outlook and SharePoint. So, and you could access the agent from Copilot. So as long as it's all in the family, so to speak, anybody could go to Copilot Studio, create an agent and use it for free. Now, if she created it and deployed it to someone who had free Copilot and not premium, I think they would have to pay per run of it. Is that correct, Carrie? I mean, is that how it's in your organization, how you've understood that? I hope I summed that up correctly.
So I don't know that I can answer the question on the licensing part, but I don't know if this helps. Is I originally actually built this in Power Automate with the help of somebody within Becky's organization. I was having some difficulties and some cost issues, if you will, and the recommendation was to switch to Copilot Studio. But it can, it was functioning in Power Automate if that's something that you're familiar with and have access to. It's ultimately a process within that anyways, but I
You're
mean,
not
all
being
the
charged per run now, right? I mean, because you're not getting nickel and dime for this. Like you have Copilot and your users that use it, it's all free now, right? That isn't Copilot Studio.
It is, that's a really great question. It says that it uses 0.3, tokens or credits. I forget
Oh,
which
it
is which.
okay.
Well, that's what it says. Now, it said that before. So again, that's probably we have a Microsoft conversation to have. We have a support case in for them to get a little bit better understanding on that. So that's probably a whole different thing, but it should be very inexpensive, if not free. That is the intention. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a bit of a, that's why I'm like, it's such a nuanced answer and it's so changing. But generally speaking, if you're just connecting stuff within the platform, it's free. And the way generally these agents work is if you don't have the premium license, then you have to pay for it. And then the cost is, again, if you're running a prompt against like an external model somewhere, you could do that too. So some companies, they do have third-party LLMs that they're using, and they will still use Copilot Studio because they're creating an agent that they want to use inside Microsoft 365. But they're like, we have this industry-specific large language model. So they kind of create this as the entry point, toss it over the fence, get the answer back, and then return it. So that is a way to do it, although it's not necessarily cheap.
You gotta get moving to Sherman.
What?
You gotta move on to Sherman.
Okay, we gotta move on. Okay. Thank you so much, Carrie. I know you gotta get going too. Thank you so much. This is really helpful. And Carrie spent a lot of time trying to tee this up and record the videos for us. So I'm so thankful. Thank you again, Carrie. We appreciate it.
No problem. No problem.
All right, thanks.
Thank you,
Take
guys.
care.
Uh-huh.
All right, now it's time for Sherman. Sherman, I will just kind of like James, just let me know when you'd like me to advance to the next slide.
Okay, thank you very much. And Jamie, I knew you would keep us on track for time. So if you can flip to the first slide. I am going to give some, sorry. So what I want to say is about the title All In, it's because when Becky invited me, she said, Sherman, we're doing something, and I noticed you've been all in on AI over the last year, and I wanted to point out that we were a very early adopter of AI. And we got 2 licenses for 1 year. It was basically a mini pilot. And I felt for that first year, I had to cost justify everything based on single outputs, very discrete things. And then our staff got diminished and we didn't replace the hours. Copilot AI compensated for that. And then in the last year, upon reflection, I realized we have a lot more than just outputs. So that's the story I'm going to tell. It's not about any individual tool or whatever. It's just me and how has our organization used it. So if you can flip to the next slide. Again, my name is Sherman Lee. I am the executive director of the Crossings community. And boy, this slide didn't translate well, but I'll just say that our website is crossings.org. We are a theological and educational institution where we help people who are preaching to write sermons. We help people hear a sermon better, even if it's not being preached. That's one of our taglines. We publish stuff weekly, including preaching aids and then comments on world events and so on. We have monthly online events. We have an annual conference that's hybrid. And so that's like 70 people in a room and about 25 people online. More on the details there later. We have been operating for 40 years as a mom and pop shop operation. And our biggest goal, strategic goal, is to transmit that legacy to the next generations. And therefore, we need to run more like a small business with a lot of repeatability. People really love programs, but they don't like that governance. They don't like that quote unquote overhead stuff. 80% of our leaders are pastors or professors. And I'll be gentle. I'll just say most of them are Medicare eligible. Therefore, there are many technology and generational changes. This is a very different context than what my career was. For decades, I was in the corporate world in financial services, and I was in essentially what is now called data and analytics. And I served on both the IT and the business sides. So that part really works well at Crossings, that I'm able to see technical solutions and to be able to translate or interpret into business. So please advance the slide. I'm going to give in the overviews, and I'm going to have examples as this section. Then I'm going to talk about key approaches in those examples, and then I'm going to end up with some key takeaways. So if you can go, with the meetings, there's information architecture, whatever that means to the older preachers, learning with AI and drafting stuff from scratch. So if you could advance the slides. A year ago, meeting facilitator had just started. There were other things, and AI wasn't very good at giving me summaries. So I formulated a script of 6 AI prompts, and it was great because it got me everything I needed and even identified blind spots. And then I served that up and I said, there needs to be a human in the loop, and I am not the right business person to do that. That's another story about if they understand what a business person is. But anyway, it's too much info. Nobody did anything. Mostly what they did was they complained about how simple things were not in the recaps, like an attendance list. Then I got all the complaints about AI being vilified in the media, and it takes up too much water, and again, nobody wanted the responsibility, the accountability and responsibility of being the human in the loop. So in the last year, Copilot has evolved to the point where it learned what I was following up with, like, oh, I really need the attendance list. And what I didn't know until just recently was it had actually been evolving and customizing so that when I say generate meeting notes, it's not just a generic prompt, like Becky said earlier. It is a generate meeting notes for Sherman's role at Crossings. And doggone it, it's really good. I send that out. I don't know if this is shadow AI, as James said. I send it out, and I now have humans who say, oh, I'll review that. So they'll tell me if anything's missing. They'll tell me if anything's wrong. Anyway, there's a much more adoption from that. So please advance the slide. Information architecture. I tell you, I feel like 50% of my consulting hours with Becky and company are on this. And I'm just going to go through the complaints first for my users. Is like, how is a channel different from a team? I've explained that several times. Oh, I'm sick of this. I'd rather just use Zoom and email. That's what I learned during the pandemic, and that's what I'm sticking to. The worst case scenario is which email has the gold copy attachment. That version control nightmare is something that my corporate life, we all were, that was number one. But in this organization, they just want what they want, when they need it, and it has to be the version that is at their fingertips. And the final one, which is the ultimate insult, is where's my file? Only Sherman knows where that stuff is. So Savvy recommended a very good outline framework. And that's what Microsoft has. It's communications portals, team workspaces. And let me tell you, a recommendation to me is good, but I'm actually rubbish at populating that stuff. I'm looking at it and thinking, oh, I could use this for that purpose. And anyway, I end up with analysis paralysis, and I'm chasing after perfection. And so anyway, a year ago, we had so many false starts and just a boatload of unfinished loose ends. So I just started a friendly conversation with AI, and it started to recommend how to map that current content into this information architecture. It would give me the sycophantic, oh, great job, perfect question at this time. But doggone it, it would just say, oh, this can go here. And then it started to proffer. I mean, this is, at the end of every prompt and response, there's 3 things. And the 3 things, if I took 1 or 2 of them, I can't even tell you how many notes pages I have of the tree of decisions and follow-up questions that AI gives me. It started to fill out the entire big picture. And I'm a big picture person. So if I can have that and show how things map, it's fantastic. And so in the end, we are evolving our structures and process